this is one more thing that improves our language skills. A study has found that using mechanical tools improves our language skills. This is by INSERM, Institut National de la Santé et de la Recherche Médicale. It's from a French article. The research has revealed a correlation between being particularly proficient in tool use and having good syntactic ability. I wonder if this has to do, well, okay, most of these tools are used by perhaps men, but what about sewing for women or cooking? I don't know. I mean, that's pretty difficult too. I'm saying that because I'm not a good cook, but I do sew. Anyway, this new study has now shown that both skills rely on the same neurological resources, which are located in the same brain region. Furthermore, motor training using a tool improves our ability to understand the syntax of complex sentences and vice versa. Syntactic training improves our proficiency in using tools, they said. So our ability to understand the syntax of complex sentences is one of the most difficult language skills to acquire. In a 2019 research study, they revealed a correlation between being particularly proficient in tool use and having good syntactic ability. A new study by researchers from INSERM, CNRS, Université Claude Bernard Lyon 1, Université Lumière Lyon 2, in collaboration with Karolinska Institute in Sweden, has now shown that both skills rely on the same neurological resources, which are located in the same brain region. Furthermore, motor training using a tool improves our ability to understand the syntax of complex sentences and vice versa. Syntactic training improves our proficiency in using tools. These findings could be applied clinically to support the rehabilitation of patients having lost some of their language skills. The study was published November 2021 in the journal Nature. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box. Now, language has long been considered a very complex skill, mobilizing specific brain networks. However, in recent years, scientists have revised this idea. Research suggests that brain areas which control certain linguistic functions, such as the processing of word meanings, are also involved in controlling fine motor skills. However, brain imaging had not provided evidence of such skills and links between language and the use of tools. Paleoneurobiology has also shown that the brain regions associated with language had increased in our ancestors during periods of technological boom when the use of tools became more widespread. When considering this data, researcher teams could not help wondering, what if the use of certain tools, which involves complex movements, relies on the same brain resources as those mobilized in complex linguistic functions such as syntax exercises, and use of tongs, T-O-N-G-S. In 2019, INSERM researcher Claudio Brosili, in collaboration with CNRS researcher Alice Roy and their team, had showed that individuals who are particularly proficient in the use of tools were also generally better at handling the finer points of Swedish syntax. In order to explore this subject in greater depth, the same team, in collaboration with CNRS researcher Veronique Bollinger, developed a series of experiments that relied on brain imaging techniques, functional magnetic resonance imaging or MRI, and behavioral measurements. The participants were asked to complete several tests consisting of motor training using 30 centimeter long pliers and syntax exercises in French. This enabled the scientists to identify the brain network specific to each task, but also common to both tasks. And they discovered for the first time that the handling of the tool and the syntax exercises produced brain activations in common areas with the same spatial distribution in a region called the basal ganglia. Cognitive training. Given that these two skill types use the same brain resources, is it possible to train one in order to improve the other? Does motor training with the mechanical tongs improve the understanding of complex phrases? In the second part of their study, the scientists looked at these issues and showed that this is indeed the case. This time, the participants were asked to perform a syntactic comprehension task before and after 30 minutes of motor training with the pliers. With this, the researchers demonstrated that motor training with a tool leads to improved performance in syntactic comprehension exercises. In addition, the findings show that the reverse is also true. Training of language faculties with exercises to understand sentences with complex structure improved motor performance with the tool. The scientists are now thinking about how to best apply these findings in the clinical setting. They said, "We are currently devising protocols that could be put in place to support the rehabilitation and recovery of language skills of patients with relatively preserved motor faculties, such as young people with developmental language disorders." And beyond these innovative applications, these findings also give us an insight into how language has evolved throughout history. When our ancestors began to develop and use tools, this proficiency profoundly changed the brain and imposed cognitive demands that may have led to the emergence of certain functions such as syntax. This is what Brozzoli concludes. Motor training and syntax exercises. The motor training involved using the pliers to insert small pegs into holes that matched their shape but with different orientations. The syntax exercises, which were completed before and after this training, consisted of reading sentences with a simple syntax, such as "the scientist who admires the poet writes an article," or with a more complex syntax, such as the scientist whom the poet admires writes an article. When the participant had decided whether statements such as "the poet admires the scientist" were true or false, sentences with the French object relative pronoun que are more difficult to process, and therefore performance was generally poorer. These experiments show that after motor training, the participants did better with the sentences that were considered to be more difficult. The control groups, which performed the same linguistic task but after motor training, used their bare hands or no training at all and did not show such an improvement. So this is by INSERM, Institut National de la Santé et de la Recherche Médicale of France, and it's on Science Daily. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support.